friends, it's lawyer Autumn White-Boyd here. I am delighted to be here with you today to talk about one of my very favorite topics, which is trademarks. We are going to dive deep in this episode into why you might want to register the trademark for your course name or some other part of your course, and when it makes the most sense to do this. So if you have a course that you came up with a really catchy name that you're very proud of and you want to make sure that no one else can use it, this is definitely the episode for you. Before I dive into this, I want to remind you, if you didn't already, go back and listen to episode 99, which is all about copyrights. Copyrights and trademarks are often confused, but they are different. And so episode 99 is going to give you all of the things you need to know about copyrights. And I'll also direct you to just 2 episodes ago, episode 104, which covered how to choose a good name for your course, because not all course names can even be protected as a trademark. So if you haven't already caught those, definitely go back and listen. Today's episode will make more sense if you have them for context, but we are talking about a little bit of a different topic, so it's not required listening before you dive into this one. I'll start with my standard disclaimer, which is that I am an attorney. I am licensed to practice law in Tennessee, but I am not your lawyer unless you've hired our firm to work with you one-on-one. So please take everything in this episode as just information. It is not legal advice. All right, let's dive in. So I want to start with just a brief overview of what the heck is a trademark. Anyway, why do you hear people talk about it? What are trademarks meant to do? Why do we even have them? So trademarks are really meant to protect consumers. And I know a lot of us as business owners, we think that they are an asset for our business and they're meant to protect our business and our brand. And that is true. But the main reason that we have trademark law is really to protect customers. The intention is that if you are searching for a product or service and you see a trademark, you see either a product name, a service name, a logo, some branding, maybe a label on something, or it can even be the side of a cereal box. It can be a product design. That when you are looking for a particular product or service and you see something that you identify, it helps you know where that product comes from. So my favorite example with this is if you are in the grocery store and you want a can of Coke. Here in the South, we call all soda Coke. If you are looking for a can of Coke, specifically, you want CocaCola, you know what it tastes like, you know that that is what you want. You are able to easily identify that can of Coke because you recognize the label, you know the name Coca-Cola, you see even the typeface, the script is very easily recognizable. You are not going to grab Pepsi by mistake because all of those things are source identifiers for the Coca-Cola. So with our online courses, in the online context, so out of the grocery store into the online world, our course names typically are going to be the most recognizable trademark that's part of our business. So it could also be the name of your business, may be very recognizable and may tell people, hey, I know this is a quality product because I recognize that name. A lot of us do business under our own just personal names, like I have the law office of Autumn White-Boyd. Some of my clients also use their names, Amy Porterfield, Shalene Johnson. These are very recognizable names. And so the names themselves can become a brand. But in this particular episode, I'm talking about your course title. So should the name of your course be protected as a trademark? So thinking about it as a source identifier, you want to think, when people see that name, do they only think of me? Or is it so common? Is it just, basically online course on guitar or, learn how to speak Spanish? These are not very recognizable brands. And so as you're thinking about, is my course name something that should be protected? I would start by asking, have you chosen a name for your course that is unique, that does have a connection to your brand, so that it helps your purchasers know that it comes from you? So that's kind of the first step. I always like to start with an overview about customer confusion and how trademarks are really intended to protect customers and make sure that they're getting what they're trying to find when they are purchasing a product or a service. So the second big topic that I want to talk about in this episode is why might you want to register the trademark for your course? You may or may not know this, but under U.S. law, and I should mention since I'm a U.S. attorney, everything I'm talking about today is based on U.S. law. In the U.S., we have what are called common law trademark rights. So even if you don't ever do anything, you don't register your trademark either with a state or the federal government, you do get some automatic protection, which is awesome. just by using it in your business. So you can't just have an idea for a course name and get that common law protection. It has to actually be in use. You have to actually be selling it, or it has to be available for sale. But once you are actually using that trademark, using a course name, selling it under that particular name or brand, then congratulations, you have some automatic common law trademark rights. But there are some downsides to relying on those common law rights. And that is, you are only going to get those common law rights in the territory where you are actually selling those courses. So the nice thing with online courses is that we're typically selling in all 50 states. So your protection could extend to all 50 states, even without you taking action in all of those 50 states to register or to anything specific. But with a lot of us, I know, especially for just starting, you may only sell in a couple states. So let's say I am located in Tennessee and I sell my course to purchasers in Ohio and Florida and New York. But then someone comes along in California where I have not sold a course and wants to use the same name for their course. They could argue that I don't have common law rights in that state because I've not been selling in that state. So that can be a potential downside to your common law rights. The other potential downside is, since those common law rights are only coming up based on where you're actually using the trademark, it makes it trickier to file lawsuits. So if the person in California is the one who is infringing my trademark rights, they're wanting to sell a course with the same name. Let's say I have actually sold some courses in California. So now I have those common law rights in California. But I may have to go to California to sue that person because that person hasn't come to Tennessee to do anything that is damaging my business. They haven't sold, they haven't come to my backyard. They haven't done anything that would bring them into Tennessee that would allow me to sue them in Tennessee. So I might have to sue them in California, which is expensive, which is time consuming. I'm gonna have to find a lawyer out in California. I can't just rely on the lawyer that I use here in Tennessee. So those are some definite drawbacks with relying on those common law trademark rights. And now I want to go to the flip side. What are some of the benefits of registering? And when I talk about registering, you can register with a state. There are state registrations for trademarks, but again, those are going to be limited just to that state. So typically with my online business clients, they're selling in all 50 states and probably internationally also. So registering in just one state doesn't give them much of a benefit. They have all the same drawbacks that I just talked about with the common law trademarks. So we are typically talking about a nationwide registration, which is with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, which you'll hear me refer to as with its abbreviation, which is USPTO. So that nationwide registration with the USPTO, it's a federal registration. That means you get the same rights in all 50 states, and it's nationwide protection. So I could never have sold an online course outside of those 3 states I mentioned in the beginning. I think I said Ohio, Florida, and New York. And I would have nationwide protection. So I'd be protected in Arizona and Texas, even if I've never sold something there. So that is a huge benefit. You have that automatic nationwide protection, nationwide rights, rather than the common law rights, which only give you rights in those states where you're actually doing business. So that's probably the biggest benefit, the biggest reason why people want to register their trademarks, is it gives you that nationwide protection, the ability to stop infringers nationwide. All right. The second thing I want you to think about when you are thinking about whether it makes sense to register your trademark, whether you're going to get enough protection, the benefit, this is probably the biggest benefit that I see other than that nationwide protection, or it kind of piggybacks on the nationwide protection. And this is that it makes it much easier to enforce your trademark rights. And this is something we'll talk about more later, but when you register your trademark, what you're really getting is the ability to stop other people from using your stuff, to enforce your trademark rights. And we do that kind of on a sliding scale. We typically will start by sending them a cease and desist letter, or you might start even more informally. You might send somebody a DM on social media or an email and just say, hey, I noticed that your course name is very similar to my course name. They're on the same topic. I think this is an issue with my trademark rights. I was first, and I'd like to ask you to please stop using that name, or please change your name. So that's typically our first step. We reach out, we let them know we think that they've infringed our rights, and we ask them to stop. The next level, if that doesn't work, might be filing a takedown notice with their social media platform. So let's say they're using the course name as a social media handle, or they are promoting the course. They're using maybe an online course platform like Thinkific or Teachable. you can actually file takedown notices with those platforms that are hosting content or that are being used for marketing. And if you have a trademark registration certificate in hand, it makes it much easier for you to go through those takedown procedures. They take you more seriously. Typically, if you've got a trademark certificate and it's an obvious infringement, they will just take it down. They might give the other person notice and a chance to respond, but they're pretty much going to do what you ask. It's very simple, it's very easy, it's very quick. It is not expensive. And so that ability to very quickly stop someone from violating your rights is really valuable, because time is money. And I will tell you, I spend a lot of time on behalf of my clients chasing down infringers, trying to get them to do what we're asking for. And it is so much easier if we have that trademark certificate already in hand. It just makes the whole process very quick, very painless, much more expensive for them. So it is an investment up front, but it can save you money later when you're actually, start having some issues, start seeing infringers popping up and giving you problems. Makes it much easier to stop. It also makes your cease and desist letter stronger. If you are able to put a trademark registration number in that letter, they know that you're serious. They know that you have already put some money behind your trademark rights. And so it kind of shows that you're willing to defend them. And especially if you're working with a lawyer, they'll see, oh, she's already got a lawyer on her side, and they could file a lawsuit if they needed to. She's already lawyered up. So it just shows that you take your rights seriously and that you're not going to be pushed around. So it can make your cease and desist letters stronger. And then that last step, if none of these things work, if none of these things accomplish your goal of stopping someone from violating your rights, tricking your customers, confusing people in the marketplace so they don't know if they're buying your course or somebody else's course, you can actually file a lawsuit. And that is still possible with those state law, common law, automatic rights. But if you have a trademark registration, you're in this other system for filing trademark infringement lawsuits. You get better damages. It's a little bit easier. You can typically file that lawsuit where you live rather than having to go to California to go after that California infringer. So there's some definite advantages when it comes to actually filing a lawsuit if you do have to get to that point. So that is the second big issue, is it helps you enforce your rights, makes it much easier, quicker, less expensive, better damages if you do have to file a lawsuit. The next big benefit to filing a trademark registration with the USPTO is that it puts everyone on public notice. And hopefully, if you listened to my last episode about choosing a good name, you will have heard that a really important part of the process of choosing a new business name or a new product name is doing a trademark search to be sure you are not infringing anyone else's rights. You do not want to be violating someone else's rights, just like we talked about. And you do that by doing a search, seeing what else is out there, making sure no one's already using the same name that you think is so brilliant for the same or a very similar product. So when you do that search, you should be searching, Google. You should be definitely searching the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office database. And so when you do that search, if you see something really similar come up and it's already registered, or even if there's just an application pending but you haven't gotten all the way through the process, that again shows you, oh, this trademark is already in use. I should stay away from this. So it will stop some infringement before it even starts, which is wonderful. You don't even have to do anything. It just, by being in that database, again, they know, okay, she's gone to the time and trouble of filing this trademark application. She takes these rights seriously. She's more likely to maybe be monitoring USPTO filings, monitoring the kind of marketplace to see what else is out there, and she might not be happy if she sees that I'm using a really similar name. So the ability to kind of cut off some violations before they even begin is a really, really nice benefit. So that public notice of being in the USPTO database is a huge benefit. The last thing I want to mention is that a registered trademark is a valuable asset in your business. Now you may, especially if this is a personal brand, if your course is very personal to you, you may not be thinking about selling your business or licensing your course to other people, or letting, maybe a corporation use it in-house to train its employees. But if any of those things are on your horizon, I will tell you, having a registered trademark for your course name makes it more valuable. It allows you to monetize it more effectively in those scenarios. So if you're selling a business, that registered trademark as an asset has value in your business, and people are willing to pay more if they know that the brand they're getting actually is already protected, and they know that it has all these benefits of being able to be more easily enforced, that it's already put people on notice. They've got these nationwide rights. There's value in that. So those are all really big benefits. If you are thinking about selling, licensing, white labeling, if any of those monetization methods you're thinking about for your course, registering the trademark is really, really critical. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about is when does it make sense to register your trademark? So we've learned what a trademark does. We've talked about all the benefits. So now let's talk about when it really makes sense and when it's absolutely critical that you register your trademark. And I will say, only you can make this decision. It is very individual. People ask me all the time, what is the perfect time to register my trademark? And I cannot give you a black and white answer. It is very fact dependent. So I'm going to run through some things that I talk through with my clients when they ask me that question, so that you can kind of get your gears turning and see if this makes sense for you. So the first thing I always ask, unless you are like venture backed or this is your 5th course and you have a huge track record, unless you just have, a really large corporation and you're launching a new product and you're sure that it's going to be successful, I typically ask, is this a brand new product or are you a brand new business? And are you making money from this course yet? Or are you just starting out and you're just kind of giving it a try? You don't have any customers yet. You haven't sold it. You don't even know if people like the name. So the first thing I like for people to have, again, unless you have a huge war chest, unless you have venture capital, or you already have a track record. If you fall in those categories, I would say, yes, definitely register your trademark. But if you're on the newer side, or if this is a new product for you and you're not sure if the name is really going to resonate with your audience, I would caution you, because there are benefits to registering, but if you're going to change your name in 6 months, those benefits are never really going to come to you, because the trademark registration process is expensive. It's going to be definitely hundreds of dollars, even if you file your trademark registration on your own. It's thousands if you work with an attorney, likely, which I recommend because it's a tricky process, but it takes almost a year. Best case scenario, it takes almost a year from you filing the application to getting through all of the different steps in the process. And there's a lot of back and forth with the USPTO and the attorney sometimes. You can have issues with other companies coming in and wanting to stop your application. So it is an investment of time and money to get your trademark certificate. So I want you to get a return on that. I want it to be a positive investment in your business. So I typically like to see that either you have a proven track record in your business, you're going to stick with the name for a while, and ideally that you've already made some sales, you've already, churned some profit from this product, either if you're registering your business name or a course name. So think about, have you shown success with this product or service? What I often see is people kind of test and change when they're just starting out. And so again, if you have a war chest and it's okay if this investment doesn't end up paying off, then sure, I'm happy to take your money and register your trademark for you. But typically I like for people to see that they have made some money off of the name. They're going to stick with it for a while to get through the process and see a positive ROI, or return on investment. All right, so the second thing I kind of alluded to already, do you plan to stick with it for a while? So this kind of piggybacks on what I was just talking about. If this is a brand new product or service, you're not even sure if you like it, you're not sure if your customers like it, you're not sure if it's going to be successful. So I typically like to see that you've been selling it for a while, you like it, you're going to keep it in your kind of list of services or products, that you're going to stick with it long enough to get through the process and get a positive ROI. So second thing to think about is, are you sure you're going to stick with it? The third thing to think about is, how would you feel? Now this is a feelings question, so it's going to be different for everyone. How would you feel if, like I said, you found somebody in California who was launching a course by the same name or a very similar name? So you guys know that I have the Legal Roadmap brand. It is a registered trademark for my podcast, and we recently launched an online course under the Legal Roadmap name. So I will tell you, one of the reasons I registered that trademark a couple years ago was because I did not want to see a competitor launching a course in this, in this same area on legal topics with the same name. I would have been devastated. And so if that is how you feel, then it's probably time to register that trademark. Because like I mentioned before, it is so much easier to enforce your rights. You will put people on notice. Hopefully you'll stop some infringement before it starts. but you are just in a much better position with your rights if it's registered versus not registered. So if you would be devastated if you found someone else using your same trademark, then yes, we definitely want to register it. Now, I have talked to clients. I've had people call me to hire us, and when I ask this question, they say, oh, I would never go after someone. I would never send a cease and desist letter. I would never contact someone and ask them to stop using the trademark. And if that is your attitude, then I'm not sure you need to register your trademark, because part of what comes with owning the trademark is the responsibility to enforce it. It's not, you can't just kind of sit on your laurels. You have to monitor the marketplace and go after people, or you could lose your trademark rights. So typically, if someone tells me that they would never send a cease and desist letter, or they have no interest in enforcing their rights, then I typically say it doesn't make much sense to register them, because that's really what you're signing up for when you're registering your trademark, is enforcing your rights. All right, so the fourth thing, that was a perfect lead in. I hadn't even looked at my next point. Are you willing and able, and can you afford to defend your rights? So it is not free to send cease and desist letters. It takes time and energy, whether that's yours, whether that's someone on your team, whether you hire an attorney. It takes time and energy to monitor the marketplace, to set up a Google search, or once a month, take a look and see what else is out there that's using the same or a similar name as your course name. And so you have to have a budget for that. You have to have time and bandwidth for that. And you have to have the stomach for that. So I have one client, and she has talked about this openly, and I believe her episode is going to be next week. Let me double check. My client, Dana Malstaff, yes, she is next week. She's episode 105. This is episode 104. She actually hired a team member who just handles her cease and desist letters. So they take the first whack at it. They monitor pretty aggressively for her Boss Mom brand. And Dana just didn't enjoy it. It didn't make her feel good. So she delegated that. But that costs money. So it's not her time, but it's money. So think about whether you have the bandwidth or the resources to actually defend your rights. Because as I mentioned, if you don't do that, you could lose your rights, and then you're right back where you started. So you might as well have saved your money and not bothered with that trademark registration. That is definitely a responsibility and required under US law. All right, so those are, let me flip, yep. Those are the things that I talk about with my clients when we're trying to decide, is now the right time? I will say, again, if you are planning a huge launch, you have a track record, you're putting major money behind advertising, you're making a big investment in branding, and this is not your first rodeo, then, and you hit all of these other points, then absolutely 100% registering your trademark is the right thing to do, because as your profile rises, your likelihood of being copied also rises. And I know a lot of you don't worry about being copied, but a lot of you do. And the best way to stop or to shut down a copycat is with a trademark registration. And I will say, this is a good gut check to do to yourself over time, because your feelings may change. And actually, I was sending a cease and desist letter for a client just last week. And I registered several trademarks for them back in, I think, 2015 or 2016, so several years ago. And we talked about whether it made sense at that time to register the name. They're a creative agency. We talked about whether it made sense to register the name of their agency, and we had this same conversation, and they said, no, I don't think anyone's ever going to copy us. It's fine. And even if they did, it wouldn't be a big deal. Like, people know who we are, and they come to us because they want us, and it's fine. Well, over the past couple of years, their business has changed. They have become much larger. They are playing on a bigger field. Their profile has risen. And there was an incident where another agency with a very similar name popped up, and they were having actual confusion. So potential clients were calling them looking for the other agency. That is exactly what I mentioned at the beginning. Trademark law is intended to prevent. You do not want customers to be confused when they're trying to find, agency A and they're calling agency B, because the names are so similar. And so here we are several years later, and now their analysis has changed because all of these things have changed. So again, it's a good thing to gut check yourself from time to time and see, is this something that maybe now is worth protecting to you that maybe wasn't before? It's not always the same answer from day to day. So I hope this was helpful thinking about whether you need to register the trademark for your course name and what are the benefits and when might be the right time to do it. I want to give a quick plug for the show notes page for this episode. This is episode 106. I'm recording these in advance, so it's easy for me to get confused. So all of the show notes are going to be at awbfirm.com/podcast and then the number 106. And you'll also find a link there to some additional resources. We will put a link to the other episodes that I mentioned, and everything else will all be right there on our show notes page. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I will talk to you next week.